Okay, we gotta talk about Shinjutsu, okay? Because Shinjutsu is kind of crazy. Now we have, like, literally, like, godly acts as a power play or as a power system, okay? So let's break down Shinjutsu a little bit. Like, where did they get the terminology for this, right? Like, what is Shinjutsu? So, firstly, right? Let's just break down the Shin part, because I think we all understand Jutsu means like technique or like art form or whatever. So when they say like fireball jutsu, it's the fireball technique or the fireball art form, right? Now with Shin, right? With Shin, this is usually a phrase or a term that's like used to represent like the divine or the gods, right? Like you can in Japanese, of course, right? Now you can look to things like Dragon Ball, right? We have the Kaio Shin or the Dai Kaio Shin, right? We have in Boruto and in Naruto, right, the divine tree, which is often referred to as the Shinju Tree. I guess I shouldn't say often, it's also referred to as the Shinju Tree. And then you have the god fruit, right, the Shinju fruit and all that. So Shinjutsu literally translates to the divine art form or the divine technique, right? So now we have three different classifications that we can work with in Naruto. We have our basic ninjutsu, right, which is the ninja arts, right? Then we have senjutsu, which are the sage arts, right? Now we have shinjutsu, which is equivalent to a divine miracle in the way of Amado's terminology, or we could call it the divine arts, right? The divine techniques. Now, Shinjutsu itself is crazy because it does everything that ninjutsu does, right? Right? Amado says that ninjutsu itself is merely an imitation. It's an attempt to replicate Shinjutsu, but it requires like weaving your hand signs, molding your chakra, changing your chakra nature, all this stuff, right? It requires a bunch of complicated finesse and training. Shinjutsu is literally an act of God. It is the divine art. So like Shinjutsu for one doesn't require hand seals or anything. That's super easy. That doesn't change much, right? We have jutsu that don't require hand seals or anything. Like literally Sasuke can just use Chidori without hand seals anymore. We've got all the Sharingan jutsu and stuff. Do we call those Shinjutsu? No, because Shinjutsu, on top of just not needing hand seals, right, it doesn't require that you use chakra either, bro. It's literally a divine act, like a miracle. That's why Amado says it's equivalent to a miracle. Like, when we see someone use a Sharingan jutsu, right, just because they're not weaving hand signs, this doesn't make it a Shin jutsu, because they still have to spend their chakra on the jutsu. Shin jutsu is free of charge, bro. Free of charge. No chakra expenditure, no chakra cost, no hand signs, no nothing. Shibai Otsutsuki, right, this new Otsutsuki introduced in Boruto chapter 75, he's basically stated to have just raised his voice and he could summon thunderbolts, right? Just by raising his voice. By waving his hands, he could change the weather and cause thunderstorms. And it's depicted as him like standing within something like the Ten Tails Cataclysm, something he's just able to muster up because he wants it to, because he is a god, right? He has Shin Jutsu. These are the divine techniques, costing him no chakra even, right? Costing him no chakra at all. It's just a flex. Now, we know that it costs no chakra because we've been in the presence of Shinjutsu stuff for a while now. Like Amado's Senrigan is confirmed to be Shinjutsu. Same thing with Damon's reflection power. They got those by a transplant that they received from Shibai, right? Now we have Code. His claw marks are also considered Shinjutsu, presumably also receiving a transplant from Shibai, right? So Shibai had the Senrigan, this reflection shit, and could use the black band claw marks. Bro, I put the dude in the thumbnail, and then I totally forgot to mention this, but even Momoshiki, right, he says he has an intimate understanding of all things Shinjutsu. He even goes as far as to say, I know all Shinjutsu. I have a video breaking that whole thing down, but even though he says all that, right, he has the craziest ability of them all, in my opinion, where he's literally been seen more times than not freezing time, bro. Literally, Momoshiki has this ability that allows him to freeze time, move around and jump around in his like spirit form for Boruto to see or whatever, so he can like navigate through the battlefield, relaying information and stuff to Boruto, and then hijack Boruto's body and resume time, right? So is this time freezing stuff a Shinjutsu, right? Because a lot of people would argue that's just like hyper processing information for Boruto or whatever. It's all in his head, it's not real, he didn't really freeze time or whatever. But I'm trying to tell you, like, they're moving throughout space, right? Boruto's making gestures and he's changing his body language. Momoshiki's seen like moving from the top of a tree to the floor to pointing at code. Like, they're moving through space in frozen time, right? And then on top of that, Momoshiki and Boruto just had their thoughts entangled in the last chapter, and there was no time freeze. So it's not something, there's no hyper processing of information anymore. It's possible, very possible, that Momoshiki has a Shinjutsu capable of making time stand still. So let's get back into the video. I just wanted to point that one out. It's very possible. Time freezing is a Shinjutsu. Yeah, and 3, 2, 1, video. Now, we also have the Karma Seal, which is also another Shinjutsu. It's the immortality art, right? So, Shinjutsu, Karma Seal, right? Shinjutsu, immortality, Karma Seal. That'd probably be what they'd call the jutsu in the data book or whatever, right? Now, this is what I'm saying. Shinjutsu, right? The Karma Seal don't cost, chakra to do. We've seen Otsutsuki dying, literally turning into ash, trying to bestow the Karma Seal. So it doesn't cost you chakra to use the Karma Seal, right? You don't have to use your own chakra to leave this on somebody, right? So it's not even a curse mark, right? It is literally a divine act, right? It is the will of the gods, basically. So Shinjutsu, top tier, right? We have Sage Arts, which is basically, or let's do it in order. We have Ninjutsu, right? Which is basically taking your internalized chakra, molding it and concentrating it into whatever the jutsu you want requires, weaving the appropriate hand seals, and then releasing that chakra outward, or however the jutsu requires you to do it. So that's with earth release, fire release, wind, water, all that stuff requires you to concentrate your chakra, weave the appropriate hand signs or whatever, and then expend your chakra, right? And there's obviously like, oh, but not every jutsu requires hand seals and stuff. Yeah, that's true. Not every jutsu requires hand seals. Skilled ninja don't even need hand seals for certain jutsu and everything. But at the end of the day, it still costs them their chakra. They still have to concentrate, mold, and expend their chakra. Sage Arts, right? Senjutsu is very similar to ninjutsu, except instead of using only your internalized chakra, you draw power from the energy around you, the energy of the environment. You are literally taking the chakra from the atmosphere, from the ground, from the trees, right? So you basically implement nature energy into your ninjutsu, creating Sage Jutsu, right? But Shinjutsu is a completely different thing, all in itself, right? And these other things were just created to try to replicate it, right? Because this is literally the will of the gods, right? Is a divine technique, right? Sukuna Hakona and the Daikokuten, these are divine techniques, right? So these dojutsu abilities are divine techniques. Now this is where things get complicated, because when we go into Shinjutsu and we go into all the techniques that were under its umbrella, that kind of opens the window, and we have to ask the question, well, what techniques are or aren't Shinjutsu? Because that means Sukuna Hakona cost Jigen, cost Ishiki, cost Kawaki 0 chakra. Daikokuten is just something he can do, right? So like, if it costs you no chakra, requires no hand seals or whatever, it is Shinjutsu. If you're using nature energy, you got Sage Jutsu or Sen Jutsu. If you're just molding your own chakra, weaving hand seals and trying to change the chakra nature or whatever, that's Ninjutsu. Okay, so it is complicated, it is different, but when broken down this way, I feel like it's clear as day. Shinjutsu is just on a whole other level. Like, because Shibai wanted to, he could make it snow, and he could basically call for an ice age just by waving his hand. Like, if he took his hands out of his pockets, looked at his watch, and was like, damn, that's pretty icy, the whole planet could turn into ice. So like, it's completely different. Like, Kaguya was cool, Momoshiki was cool. And we gotta talk about Momoshiki, but the video's getting long, so we're gonna do that in a separate video. Let me know what you guys are thinking. Shinjutsu explained, the divine techniques, the acts of the god, bro. No chakra expenditure, no hand signs required. I've been your man's the Grass Ninja. Peace.